This week's episode is truly amazing and has a special place in my heart because I welcome somebody whom I am in complete admiration of, who is somewhat of a mentor to me and who is one of the best executive producers out there. It is Kit Redmond. She is the founding partner and executive chair of RTR Media Inc. She has created so many hit lifestyle shows. She has a passion for storytelling and a zest for life. And you are just going to love all these nuggets of wisdom that she shares. So if you're ready, let's go. Welcome back to another episode of the Maverick Makers Podcast. I say this every episode, but I really mean it. I am so excited for this week. I've got the amazing Kit Redmond. She is the founding partner and executive chair of RTR Media. And she kind of gave me one of my first starts in the entertainment business. And I'm so grateful for her. And honestly, so many nuggets of wisdom have stuck with me throughout my career. So I am just thrilled to have her on the show. The epitome of a maverick. So welcome, Kit.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle. I love the opportunity to reconnect and to talk because you're an amazing person.
Oh, that's so kind, and that means a lot. So I know that some people may know or may not know parts of your journey, but let's talk about how you started. Where did you start? Where you are today, and take us through how that all goes.
Sure. I think I started when Pierre Trudeau, Justin's father, came to my hometown, and I watched the national press descend on my small town and decided I wanted to be a journalist. So years later, I went to journalism school, studied journalism, was hired by the CBC, worked as a reporter out in Saskatoon. And then I became an arts reporter and host. And then we moved to Toronto. We had started our family. And I was trying to balance that constant search that all women have of the right mix between work and raising your kids. And so I freelanced for quite a while doing CBC radio, learned a lot about writing. It was so good. And then through several moves, because we were CBC brats, we really got to see the country. Ended up back in Toronto, where I hosted a show for WTN. And then I ended up becoming a production executive at the network. And I was a serious journalist. I really wanted to do serious journalism. But I was watching the ratings every week and the serious journalism, the docs that we were spending years on doing, and hardly got any viewers. But some of the lifestyle shows that we were doing, most notably Debbie Travis's Painted House, were getting tons of viewers. And I had interviewed Doris Anderson, who at that time was the head of the Status of Women and had been the editor of Chatelaine. And she told me, she was the most beautiful woman. I'll always remember that interview. She told me, dear, sometimes you can weave a story between the curtains and lace. And what she meant was, if we talk about our homes, you can, within that conversation, weave stories. And I'll give you an example. Debbie, one time, Travis did a story about a blind person. And we could have done a whole documentary about what do blind people see or don't see or how do they see. But this man walked into his daughter's room and it was covered, the whole walls were covered with graffiti and he couldn't see that. But the viewer could see it. But later when he walked in, Debbie had painted it a hot pink and he could feel the color. He could feel the color. And the way he used hands and all of his other senses, I learned more about what it was like to be blind from that one episode than from anything else I had done. And that kind of changed my trajectory because then I went on to partner with Debbie and her husband, Hans, to start RTR Media, which was originally Rosenstein, Travis, and Redmond. I think you met during those days. And I really changed my way of storytelling. Instead of thinking about how I wanted the story to be important, I just focused on what is the story and what is the best genre to tell that story. And that kind of set my trajectory for the second half of my career. So where I am now, I was a partner. RTR is 20 years old. Speed forward, I bought out my two original partners, ran the company as really truly Redmond for quite a while. And then in the last 6 or 7 years, I did a 5-year succession plan with two fabulous women who had worked with me forever, Jenna Keene and Tony Maselli, and they ended up becoming partners with me and are the principal shareholders in the company. And I've now stepped back into the executive chair role where I support them in strategic planning and fiscal supervision.
Wow.
Yeah, there's 20 years. No, that's actually 40 years, but there you
Okay, first of all, I had no idea that you hosted your own show, so that's one of
Oh,
those.
yeah.
Wow, okay, fantastic. Can I dig that up?
Yeah, well, it was great. I had two co-hosts. I had Helen Hutchinson, who had been one of the people on W5, and Jennifer Rattray, and we were three women at three stages of life. We were the maiden, the mother, and the crone, sort of. So Jennifer was young and in her 20s. I was in my mid 30s with kids, and Helen was a senior. And so that's how we hosted the show, and it was a great show, produced by Barbara Bardi.
Wow,
Yeah.
amazing. And let's talk quickly about the succession plan because I think that's amazing. I don't think a lot of people have the foresight to even think about that in terms of longevity. And we'll talk about legacy after, but just the longevity and what that looks like after. There's so many businesses that I see that, when, it just sort of evaporates and that's it. But had you thought about that, years prior? Like, where did that come to you where, hey, I need a succession plan and
Well, I think, it started at one point. RTR was approached when it was owned by Debbie Hans and me to as a buyout, and we went through all the due diligence for about a year. And there was a health scare in our family, which kind of made me go, "Well, maybe working 80 hours a week isn't such a good idea." Fortunately, that health scare became less as the time went on. Um, But, I had our banker in Montreal say to me, "You should not sell your company right now. You've just done a lot of hard work. The rewards are gonna come in the next few years. This is not a good time." And so instead of selling, I turned around and bought out my partners, and the due diligence had already been done, a price had already been set, and I had to borrow against my, retirement savings to buy, my partners out. That was a little stressful. But then years later, when I was looking, my husband is 10 years older than I am, and I was looking at my life and, what else I wanted to do. And I had a dear friend who, does a lot of work with home business, not home businesses, but family-run businesses. And he taught me a lot about succession planning. And so he said, "You need a good 5 years to really figure it out." And I knew that my kids didn't want to take over the business. They were, a little on the young side at that point. Um, and I also knew that a lot of companies were being bought in those days. And what I saw, I didn't like. There's a lot that worked out well, but a lot of the ones that I saw, within a year, the principals were gone. Often, a lot of the staff were laid off. And to be quite honest, I didn't see a lot of great shows coming out of those new, bigger companies. And so I thought, I don't know if I want to do that. And so I had founded RTR with the strong belief that I wanted to change how we worked. And I wanted to create an environment where creative people could do their best work while nurturing their friends, family, and communities. Knowing that our business is crazy, the media, and that we're not always going to be perfect, But if we could create that environment as owners, as producers, as executive producers, and so we did a lot of work in that area, and I can go more into that if you'd like. But in terms of that, I thought, well, how does that apply to a succession plan? And I thought, I don't want anyone to be laid off. I
Hmm.
want my company to be better, because going along with that line that you talked about, hiring people smarter than you and then letting them do their jobs, well, maybe you could hire people smarter than you and then let them succeed you. And so I approached Tony and Jenna and I said, would you be interested in becoming partners? And they were women, and they had their own families and responsibilities. And they're like, well, they didn't want to borrow money. And I knew how stressful that was for me. And I said, well, what if we do it slowly over 5 years, where as the company makes money, you will pay off the purchase price of the company? And my accountant said, you are nuts. Why are you doing this? And I said, I really believe in these women. I believe that they will work their butts off, that they've already proven themselves to me over and over of them, that there will be two of them instead of one of me.
Hmm.
And I really felt that RTR would be stronger. And then over the course of that 5 years, we worked a lot on the legal and the financial and making sure everything was transparent and clear about how things would work. A good tip I was given by Al McGee was hire the best accountant and lawyers you can find and then do what they say. Um, and then at the same time, we hired a consultant, which also coincided with COVID, who helped them to stop calling me their boss and that I was their partner, and to help me to disentangle, because it's sort of like having a teenager. You have to keep letting out the rope until they can stand on their 2 feet. Sometimes they'll make mistakes, but often they might be the newer, improved versions of us. And so that consultant, we kind of weaned them off of me, and they were weaned onto the consultant for a while and then weaned off of the consultant. And now they're the majority shareholders in the company. We meet every month. We do strategic planning together. We do monthly financial meetings. And if the time ever came where the two of them disagreed, well, I can play the King Solomon role. That has never happened since we started. I'm so proud of them, and I'm so proud of the company. And I know that we've also proven that when it's time for them, that they can do the same. And in this way, RTR will long live past me. And that I think is a legacy.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's worth doing succession planning. It's worth thinking about it way before you think you have to. And it's worth getting professional help to help you to navigate it.
Hmm. No, I think that's such an interesting way of looking at business rather than being acquired, like you mentioned, being sold. Um, that you still have a piece of it and that's still part of you, and that the outcome is the way you want it to be versus like you're mentioning. Yeah, I think that's incredible. And what a
And
great.
they did pay off the purchase price fairly quickly. And by remaining still as a minority shareholder, it's my pension plan.
Hmm.
And as a small business person, you don't have a pension. So this has become my pension plan. And yeah, and I can be the wise woman in the room, or aspire. I can aspire to be the wise woman in the room.
Brilliant. Even the pension plan is like brilliant. That's well, I'm gonna think about that one for sure. So let's talk about, all of this. What's been your biggest Maverick move to date, do you think?
Mm. Well, I think we just talked about two. One was starting the company with two
Mhm.
partners and coming up with that original vision. The second was when I bought them out. And at that time, that's when I really looked at what type of company do I want to run? And I really went to based management and really empowering people to embrace their strengths, to build teams where there were different strengths, not everybody being like you.
Mm.
And if there were weaknesses, to put somebody on the team where that weakness was their strength, and to work like that. And I did a lot of work on that. And I really think that helped to set the tone for the company. The next big one was when we decided to leave production in Canada and produce solely in the United States. And that was the end of the free trade, not free trade, on my mind, the terms of trade deal. So for a long time, producers had this overarching agreement with the broadcasters that set out the ground rules for how we would do business. And that was worn away by the broadcasters until finally it no longer existed. And I looked at the business model in Canada and it wasn't there for me.
Mm.
I thought, this is not my hobby. The deals that were being negotiated were not profitable for a business person. And Trina McQueen, who had been the first female reporter, I think, on CBC and went on to run Discovery and CTV, she really taught me to view our business as a business and to professionalize it, which meant looking at profit margins and business models. And I think the first R of our TR is relationships. Our best relationships were in the United States.
Mm.
At that time, often the broadcasters in Canada, not all of them, felt that Canadian content was a condition of their license, and they did it because they had to, and they didn't think Canadian producers were that good. And in the United States, we had many shows that were being done in Canada and the United States. Our client at that time was HGTV US, which was owned by Scripps. Really thought we were good. They dealt with us like business people. You pitched them idea. Within a month, they told you, nope, don't like it. Come back with something else. Or, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's put some money into development. Canada, those pitches could sit on a table for a year.
Mm.
And just the way they treated us, it was as a business deal. And so we went with our best client, our best relationship, HGTV. Tony Maselli and I went down there one time and we used a strategic planning model where we set 2 wildly important goals a year. Mark Carney is doing this. I'm watching him, our new prime minister, and I'm like, oh, we're going to be the top economy in the G7. We are going to have a free trade zone across Canada. Like, he sets big aspirational goals. And Tony and I and Jenna had set this goal of we're going to have the best parking spot in HGTV's parking lot down in Knoxville, Tennessee, which meant we were their best client and supplier. And we worked really hard to do that. And we created Hometown. We created several shows. We now have 3 hit shows with them. And we are one of their best producers. And so I knew that that would be really good. Now, Rogers has just bought or gotten the HGTV license in Canada, and we're coming back to Canada right now with 2 shows. So will be interesting because the times are changing. But I think if I looked at my wildest move, I did do that move ahead of time, and I got out before the market got really weak in Canada. And that served us very well, and our TR thrived.
And you've created so many hit shows and this wonderful content. What do you think the magic sauce is? What goes into creating that hit show?
Perseverance.
Mm.
I really think perseverance, if you and your gut know it's a good show, to persevere. We recently had a show in development with an American broadcaster. They loved the show, but came back really hard on the budget. And we said, this is not our hobby. We can't make a show for fun. We have to make some money from it. So we said, thanks, but no thanks. And a year later, they came back and asked us to repitch the show because they still loved it. So that taught me something. Is maybe that's not perseverance, but the other thing that I think is the magic sauce, because every time I've done this, it's worked, especially in my genre, is build the show around a person or people with passion.
Mm.
So Debbie Travis, I didn't build her original show, but Facelift, um, Debbie was absolutely passionate. And she was a Brit, and she believed in telling stories that would resonate with a global audience. With Scott McGilvery and Income Property, Grzina Krupa and I sat down with him, and we designed a show around what he was passionate about, which was, as a student, making money out of having suites in your house. Ben and Aaron was very much, they believed that they could revive their hometown, that young people had left, but now is the time when people could come back. So when you build a show around a person's passion, the story and plot will follow. And we used to talk about, if a story resonates with you, you'll watch the show. If the story resonates with your family, you'll probably watch it. It's concentric circles. If their community, their town, their city, the further you get out, the less likely they are to watch it. Well, everyone has a home. Everyone has a home. Everybody wants that home to be a place of refuge and love.
Yep.
And if you can tap that story, then that story will be global in its reach. And like Doris Anderson told me, you can tell stories within that. You can tell stories of love. You can tell stories of kindness. You can tell stories of business. You can tell stories of money. You can tell any story. But if you weave it between the curtains and lace with honest, authentic people who are passionate about what they're doing, that creates a hit show.
Mm. Love it.
No, thanks.
The
I love it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
Mhm.
let's talk about on the other side of it. What has
Yeah.
been the hardest part about entertainment?
Oh my God. Perseverance. You do have to persevere. It takes a long time. You have to spend a lot of money on development, which is hard because it's like money going out the window. And for every 1,000 ideas you might pitch, you might be lucky to get one show. So much of it isn't really based on you or your ideas that you're pitching. So much of it is based on the climate at the time. There's been nothing but mergers and acquisitions for the last 20 years. And so every time that happens, everything stalls. And then you have to wait, and then you have to see what the new management is, and do they have their own ideas? So patience, you have to be really, really patient. If you can have a couple, one or two ongoing series, that really helps.
Mm.
I'm very grateful to the Canadian government who supports us through tax credits, because in this high risk, high development, heavy business, having those tax credits can help you ride the waves of the industry. And the industry is transitioning again away from cable TV. Most of the big conglomerates that now own cable channels are carving off their cable channels into separate businesses and leaving their streamers with their regular, like Discovery and Comcast, have taken the streaming business, and they're kind of, and that's because that's part of a dying industry.
Mm.
So being able to transition your storytelling to new platforms like you're doing with this podcast is really, really important, but it's also very hard. It's very hard.
It is hard. And that was sort of my question, which you kind of answered, which how did the landscape or how is it changing? So you touched on it, but from the beginning now you have to be really nimble to know, how to change. But how did do you think content creation in itself has changed or it's just the way we deliver content?
Hmm. I think there's 7 basic plots that have been around since cave people sat by fires and told stories. We tell stories to help our children grow up.
Mm.
And I don't think that's changed. And if you want a great book, there's a book called 7 Basic Plots. It'll
Mm.
take you a year to read it, but those things don't change. Um, the means of distributing your story has changed dramatically. When I started, cable was just coming on board, and there was like a boom. just a boom of opportunities. And I really was fortunate to live through that time. Um, and then I think it was probably 9 or 10 years, we really started to see the industry change. You have young children now. At that time, my kids were teenagers and they weren't watching TV, they were watching YouTube. And I tried to do a whole digital thing. Lots of things I've done right. Some of the things I've done and have just spent a lot of money on and nothing came of it. So I really do believe the means is changing. The market is so fragmented. I think hits are really important. You can't just, I think there's going to be, uh, I'm trying to think of how to say this. There are more streamers, but I think there's going to be less shows. In some ways, back to when there was the big three cable, not cable, linear on-air networks like CBC and Global and CTV. In some ways, we're kind of getting back to that, in that you have to have a really big hit to make it onto a streamer.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, so I think, our whole approach to development has totally changed. And you have to really look at the environment, work that relationship, part of RTR, relationship, trust, results. Really have to build and nurture those relationships. Jenna's just done that with Rogers. They're brand new. They've never done HGTV, haven't really done home other than on City TV. And so they're looking for tried and true producers who they can trust, and building that relationship and understanding what is it that they need to launch this brand across Canada, which is one of the reasons why they have just acquired the format rights for Hometown Takeover, the big show we do in the United States. And they're going to bring that to Canada. Well, what better way to ask all small towns in Canada if they'd like their town made over? I mean, and they've got City TV. They can tell everybody about it. That is being smart about what does your client need, even if they don't know it yet. Christine Shipton would say, don't tell me, like, you tell me what I need, like, you do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think doing that is really important. So a tighter focus. I think you have to have a tighter focus today, and you have to be ready to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Follow the business news. Read the annual reports or quarterly reports of the clients you're serving.
Great advice. What do you think what is the one quality that every great producer needs?
There's so many. I'm really thinking about this. I think first and foremost, that idea of patience comes back. You have to have the patience to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to have the patience to lead. You have to have the patience to take the time to build the environment where creative people feel safe, because they're putting their face out there, they're putting their work out there, they're very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So I think being a mother was probably my best resume qualification for being a good producer,
Mm.
because creative people can be hot-tempered, and being patient. There was one time when I was working with the NSI and we had a very high-priced, I won't say the name, writer from the United States come in to work with our writers. And for some reason, he didn't like a very attractive young man who had gotten a development deal with a Canadian channel. And all day, this young man waited and waited as he went through everybody else. And at the end of the day, he looked at his script and he said, "It's not good." Threw it down in front of the guy and said, "I'm leaving." And I just saw this young man, very talented young man. If he hears this, he'll know the story. Um, his face just be crushed. And so I went after the gentleman and I said, "No, that's not what we paid you for. You need to do better." And he tore a strip off of me, Michelle. Yelled at me. Some directors are yellers, some writers are yellers. Just lambasted me in front of everyone. And at the end of it, I didn't say a word. At the end of it, I said, "And we'll see you here tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock to talk to this young man." And the next morning he came back And he said, like, I've done that to so many people, and you didn't get upset, and you didn't like freak out, and you got me to do exactly what you wanted me to do. He said, "How do you do that? Like, how did you handle that?" And I said, "Oh, I have a 14-year-old daughter. You're nothing." You know? So I think being a mother and being able to manage a lot of competing needs as a producer is really important, and just having the patience to not do knee-jerk reactions. A producer has to be on their feet at all time, and yes, deal with immediate problems, but also think of the long term. So I think being patient, and that is something I'm still working at, Michelle. It's didn't come naturally to me.
No, that's okay. I don't think it comes naturally to anyone, but that's okay. We work on it. So I remember this is one of those moments where, you always come to me. I remember being, I won't say her name, but she might know who. Anyways, traveling to Montreal for a wedding with I think he was my boyfriend at the time, now my husband, but yeah, boyfriend. Sitting at a table with you, and you leaned across and said to each one of us at the table, "What's your definition of success?" You did, and then you also, and I think we had ridiculous answers because we were all in our, late 20s, 30, I can't even remember, but we had all these ridiculous, "I wanna make $1,000,000, I wanna do," like silly, silly, silly answers.
Yeah.
And then you followed up with the question, which was, "What's written on people's tombstones?"
Mm.
What's written on their tombstones? Is it, "I made $1,000,000, I was
Yep.
a successful CEO," all those things. And then you really made sense, and then I'm not gonna finish this, but I'm gonna throw it to you.
And am I supposed to give, like, a lightning round answer? So I need to be
No, not
concise?
lightning round. I was just gonna say,
Okay.
at the end was, what is that legacy, and what is that definition of success? Because then you finished it and explained what that definition of
Well,
success.
let me see if my answer is the same. Karen Gelbart, who was the head of HGTV Canada and the Food Network, and I met her years before that at News World. It's the quality of your day-to-day relationships
Mm,
is my definition of success, whether that's with your family, your friends, your community, or your workplace. Is if you create that environment where creative people can do their best work, then the quality of your relationships within that environment, I think, make hit shows. Like, I think that makes hit shows. And so my legacy is the quality of the relationship I have. Somebody once told me when I was just starting, I was walking in, I was very nervous. I had borrowed money, and maybe was micromanaging a lot. And she said, the way you walk into the office every day affects how everybody else in the office will feel. So I used to take a deep breath before I walked in through the doors and thought, how do I present myself today? How do I be patient? How do I try to listen, even if I'm not that good at it? Um, and I think that is a standard. And the fact that you reached out to me and we haven't spoken for years and we're talking as though not no time has passed. It's the quality of the relationship we built when we did work together. And the work that we did was really good.
yeah, exactly, and it'll always stay with me, so I'm grateful for that conversation and the many of conversations that have stayed with me, so thank you.
As am I. Thank you.
Thank you. Alright, so let's step into this lightning round, so whatever comes to your mind.
Mhm.
Okay. So coffee-fueled brainstorm or quiet solo walk?
Oh, quiet solo walk.
Okay. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Okay. I already know the answer to this one, but we'll just give it to everyone. City escape or countryside retreat?
Countryside retreat.
I knew it. Okay. Call or text?
Call. Oh,
Okay.
fast.
Absolutely. What's one thing people would be surprised to learn about you?
Mm. Pretty transparent person. One thing is people I'm sorry, I'm thinking about that. I'm learning Italian.
Oh, bene.
Bene.
That's all I got.
Come sta?
Amazing.
Yes,
I love it.
okay. Okay.
There you go. Amazing. And I do remember, I know this is something surprising I learned about you. I remember seeing you with on social media with a guitar and you were singing. Did I see?
Oh, yeah, well, especially in my semi-retirement, music is probably my first passion. Yes. I sing, I play the guitar and the piano, and now that I have more time, I'm pursuing it a lot. Yes.
You let me know
Thought
what
people
album's
knew that
coming
about me,
up.
but maybe not.
No, that's very surprising. I loved seeing that. If you could have dinner with any three people, dead or alive, who would they be?
Mm. If I could have dinner with any 3 people, dead or alive, who would they be? Whew. Hmm. There's so many great people that are well, Trina McQueen was a real trailblazer for me, and, I would love to know what she thinks now.
Mm,
So Trina McQueen would definitely be, my husband.
amazing.
Every time I sit down with him, I learn something. We have a very we're very blessed and fortunate with we're curious. We're curious together. And my dad.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
beautiful. I love
yeah.
that. Amazing. What's your go-to way to recharge?
To recharge, I walk for an hour every morning. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the way I stay calm and patient.
Back to that
And
again.
many people will know that I'm a big fan of walk and talk meetings.
Good. I love it. What's one thing on your bucket list you haven't done yet?
Ooh, ooh. One thing I might my one regret is I didn't make a movie. And I was very close at one point with the development deal, and that's a regret I have in my career. I would have liked to have done a movie.
Hmm. Okay. Still time. Okay. And maybe this is the next one. If you could greenlight any project tomorrow, no limits, what would it be?
Greenlight any project that we have at RTR right now?
Doesn't have to be. Could be. Doesn't have to be.
I'm very proud of Hometown. Very, very proud of that show. And, I would give a green light to Hometown Canada and creating that as a franchise around the world. Um, that would be my dream. The night that Hometown aired, I sat on Facebook and for 6 hours responded to people talking about their hometowns, and I think a show about our communities and people who care about them and build them to be positive, healthy places is a really wonderful legacy. Um, and so I think, Hometown Canada, we've got the format, it'll take time to develop it and find the right people. Ben and Aaron will come up and, help with that, but then there will be a Canadian, talent. I think, I'm very, very proud of that show, and I hope it goes here and elsewhere, and I hope we can be the people who bring it to the world.
Love it. Amazing. All right. So this kind
Also
of,
very happy. One last thing, we have this
yeah.
other new show, The County, with Sarah, Keenly's side, who's, we're shooting this summer, and Kelly Ray is the producer on it, so I'm also very excited about that show.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. So that leads me to my next question. How do you want to change the world?
Oh, by creating environments where people can do their best work by, nurturing their friends, family, and communities.
I love it.
I feel very strongly about that, and you can see that in our work.
Absolutely.
Most people at RTR would be able to repeat that back to you.
Hmm. I love that.
Mission statement. Mhm.
Last question. You may have teased to it, but maybe there's something more.
What's what?
What's next?
Oh, what's next? Oh, well, I will be singing this summer. So I think, in terms of my career, I'm really happy that I'm in the last chapter of my career. And, I don't think there's a next after this. I think the next is, I love being a grandmother. I love being a mentor. And I hope that I can get 10,000 hours in as a musician and be able to be fluent in Italian. Yes, those will be my next big things.
I love it. So I see an Italian feature film with an amazing soundtrack happening.
Oh my god. That would be so great. You need to produce it.
I'm always up for the challenge.
You never know. You never know.
You
But
never know. You're
I'm
absolutely
very aware that what you say, lots of people want me to do things, and I'm very aware that what you say yes to, you're saying no to somebody else. And right now, my family is, especially as it's growing with grandchildren,
Mm,
um, I value each day.
time. That's
Great.
so important. Now, what's that last quote you were going to mention, or did you say it?
Oh yes. Well, I did go to Italy recently. And my new granddaughter is gonna go to an Italian daycare, so that's one of the reasons what. And, I went on a retreat, and one of the things said during the retreat that really stuck with me is worrying is praying for what you don't want. So when you start to worry, the time that you spend doing that, are you actually manifesting what you don't want? So just don't worry about things. You can do something, you can research, you can take action, or you can let it go. But worrying is a wasted emotion.
I love that.
And I wish I knew that a little bit more earlier.
Thanks for sharing it with the world, and I'll keep that here. So thank you. Thank you
You're
so much. Thank you. You have no idea again how much this means to me. I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and I can't wait for everyone to just eat up this episode. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome, Michelle. And good luck to all the people who do listen to it, and be persistent, be patient, and find people's passions and help them to live it.
The Maverick Makers Podcast is sponsored by Maverick Makers Content Creation Collective. We fuel your content pipeline through video, photography, design, and editorial. Let's connect to your audiences and make more sales. Learn more at maverickmakersco.com.